The Name of the Rose is a 1980 novel by Umberto Eco. It is written like a supposed academic translation, and thus, really, it's an Italian version of the obscure Neo-Gothic French version of a 17th century Latin edition of a work written in Latin by a German monk toward the end of the 14th century. Of course, this is just a fictional work. It's not, like the Castle of Otranto or Lord of the Rings. It's not actually real, even though it plays it being it. Though, of course, I read this in English. The translation was done by William Weaver in 1983. There is a copious amount of Latin in this book, and in the opening note, some French, even, that's not translated. And Echo isn't really holding your hand at all, and he seems to be having fun with it, actually. And it's his debut, so it's rather impressive, and I'm not surprised that it's a very popular book. The story takes place in the late Middle Ages, November of 1327 to be exact, in an undisclosed area in northern Italy. It follows William of Baskerville, a Franciscan friar, and the Benedictine novice Adso of Melk, who put the story to parchment later in life. They have come for a disputation, a theological dispute about apostolic poverty between the Pope and John the 22nd and the Franciscans. John is one of the Avignon popes. The intra-diegetic author considers him impious and a heretic. And these meetings are marred by Adelmo of Otranto, from that Gothic novel I actually mentioned earlier. An abbot actually asks William to investigate, this character's death. This reminded me of the Codville Chronicles by Ellis Peters. It's very different in style, length, setting, etc. It is a little older, but it is close to the same period too. And this takes place a little over a week. The day is broken into chapters after their canonical hours, compline, sexta, nones, etc. These are explained by a note at the start for those unfamiliar with these hours, and also the political situation involving the Holy Roman Empire, France, and the papacy is shortly explained too. And when the narrative truly begins, it is immediately evident that it's, masterfully done. The ruminations mentioning the Boethius, the philosophies of Roger Bacon and William of Ockham, William of Baskerville actually being from England himself, and the way of his mentor and of the world. It's enchanting. It's also, really a good look at the medieval mind, particularly concerning religion. Beyond the general story, one that is key to the plot from the start. The abbot knows something, but since it was told him during confession, he cannot share it with the investigator, which is something that I guess still happens today, but maybe is less in people's minds. And when we arrive at the first day, the story is ready to go. And go it does. Sometimes the narrator gets distracted and admits this. The in-depth architecture is not exactly my jam, but I can appreciate the love of art and humanities. The philosophy is sometimes long-winded, and the Latin a little much, which shows me how I really should study more, I guess, but still. The different orders, the Franciscans, Dominicans, etc., are fun to see today when they're not, as crucial to society as they were in the late medieval period, or as a big part of society. Also, the character Salvatore is very fun. He's ugly, like a cast-out mutt, and he speaks a garbled language that was actually really fun to read. Largely a variety of romance, true vulgar common speech, though. And the theme of entropy is ripe here. The golden age is gone. We are literal dwarfs to the giants of the past. Also, there's sexuality, as these are, it's a novel of men, pretty much, with no relations to women. Homosexuality does come in. And the siege of Béziers, only about 100 years gone at this point, is mentioned. Very poignant, since I just read about this actually in the Song of Albigensian Crusade the day before reading this novel, and that part is worth sharing, actually, and here's a quote from the book. And as for the heretics, I also have a rule, and it is summed up in the reply that Arnauld Amalricus, Bishop of Citeaux, gave to you, those who asked him what to do with the citizens of Béziers. Kill them all, God will recognize his own. William lowered his eyes and remained silent for a while. Then he said, the city of Béziers was captured, and our forces had no regard for dignity of sex or age, and almost 20,000 people were put to the sword. When the massacre was complete, the city was sacked and burned. A holy war is nevertheless a war. And for this reason, perhaps there should not be holy wars. So Eco does a great job with something else too. I think with all the talking of philosophy and science, it really shows the Middle Ages were only different than the Renaissance in some superficial ways. To the disregard those differences, it largely just shows us the Middle Ages are truly erroneously called Dark Ages, especially this later period. Science kept moving. William used glasses and compass. There is proper due also given to the Islamic world and its contributions at the time too. So the two narratives are very different and don't always seem intertwined, but they rely on each other. While the politics won't be to everyone's taste and the long-winded way they are used to get to the murder will drive some away, it is a worthwhile journey, I think, inviting more complete understanding of a situation than a normal whodunit can. And the meaning, the pattern, the meta-narrative, the ideas, and so forth are all things to look for, or in some cases, their lack, really. Anticlimax is the game, and it gets beautiful in its final pages, but for me, that doesn't mean it is the most enjoyable read ever. But it was definitely worth my time. It's even if it's a bit on the prolific side, it is a very well done novel. Again, it's just not something I enjoyed a ton, though I did enjoy it. Also, the postscript has echoes state this, and I decided not only to narrate about the Middle Ages, I decided to narrate in the Middle Ages. And I think Echo succeeded here. It's a phenomenal book, and I feel like, I can be blown away and maybe not, 100% entertained, but still, I was entertained enough. It's just not a favorite. But here's some quotes as well I feel like worth sharing. It's quite a number, so let me get to them. Such is the power of truth that, like good, it is its own propagator. Even in books of falsehood to the eyes of the sage reader, a pale reflection of the divine wisdom can shine. The librarian protects books not only against mankind, but also against nature, and devotes his life to this war with the force of oblivion, the enemy of truth. Images are the literature of the layman. I lack the courage to investigate the weaknesses of the wicked because I discovered they are in the same as the weaknesses of the saintly. Verbavana autorisio apta non loci. This one is pertinent to the topic of the appropriateness of laughter, which actually comes up a few times. Anyways, and we live for books, a sweet mission in this world dominated by disorder and decay. Naturally, the complete works of the Venerable, and that was interesting actually because I wondered if Bede was called the Venerable at the time, and I also wonder what the word idiots is used to mean here, but it's obviously negative. But anyways, those are some ramblings now. Liam from Liam's ICM, I'll catch you next time.